Alright, today is Saturday, November 10th. The time is about 12:30, and today I'm going to do a review of the new V-Moto Crossfade M100 headphones. And yes, this is the Boom Pro microphone cable. Okay, starting with the sound quality of the Crossfade M100s, I will first talk about them unamped, and then I will talk about them amped, and then I will talk about them being driven by a portable player, and whether or not that needs amplification or not as well. And so starting with an overall gist of the sound quality of the M100s, I really like these. They are very detailed. The bass is the most prominent part of the sound characteristic. The highs are a bit lacking in the extension. Well, I shouldn't say lacking in the extension, but it's kind of quiet. So if you're interested in rock tracks, the cymbals might not be as pronounced as you would hope, but they are still very acceptable for rock music. I listen to a lot of alternative rock and progressive, and so this is a great headphone for that, especially while mobile listening. Mobile listening meaning while you're walking around campus or on the bus or traveling between areas around the streets. And so I really like the sound quality of the M100s as a whole. There are some issues with it regarding how the sounds are presented, so I will talk into more detail about that. So starting with the bass. The bass on these headphones is really great. It extends really low. I've gotten 30 hertz, up to 30 hertz with this on normal music listening levels. Of course, if you turn up the volume, you're going to hear lower than that. But I like to listen to my music at a very low level. So the bass extension is really great on these. The hit of a drum pedal from the drum set, the bass pedal, it really gets to your chest. It's like this really chest thumping bass. It's really great. I really love it. And then starting into the lower mids, there is some veiling of that because of the bass, but it's not too bad. In terms of the presentation, I like to think of it as the bass guitar or the bass pedal is at the front stage, and then the lower mids, such as lower guitar notes or male vocals, they're kind of slightly behind it. And so that is a little bit of a weird presentation of how the lower mids are presented, but it's still really good. As I mentioned, there is a lot of details that you can hear with the M100, especially for a $300 headphone. These are really excellent headphones for detailing and texture. So that's really great about the whole M100, is that you get good details and texture throughout the whole audio spectrum. So moving on to the mid-range, it's a little bit recessed, but not a whole lot. It's not as recessed as the Audio-Technica M50s, but it's still a little bit recessed. And by recessed, what I mean is, like I said, with the bass pedal and the bass guitar, it's up front and kind of in your face, and then slightly behind it on the stage is the mid-range, so vocals, guitars, female vocals especially. And so that's a little bit of a weird presentation, but it sounds really good while listening on a mobile device and mobile listening in general. And so when you're listening on the go, the bass is a bit kind of hard to say, but when you have the external background noise, the bass is not as accentuated as if you were listening at home. And so on the whole, I think while mobile listening, the bass is very nicely balanced with the mid-range. And so I really love that with the M100s, is that when I'm at school, on campus, walking between classes, there's people talking, and so the bass is not as accentuated as it is while at home listening. And so I really enjoy listening to music on the M100s while mobile listening. Moving to the upper mid-range, so that'd be like female vocals, violins, higher notes on the guitar. They are presented very well. They have a slight emphasis over the lower mid-range, and so for the mid-range you kind of have a slightly recessed lower mid-range and then a slightly emphasized upper mid-range, and so it presents the upper mid-range very well, I think. Female vocals are a bit more pronounced than male vocals, for example, and so that's what I like about the M100s, is that I listen to a lot of female vocal tracks, and especially some folktronica music by Beth Orton, and so her voice is really well presented in this headphone. And I really like the way that the highs are presented while mobile listening, because like I mentioned, the highs are a bit quiet for rock music, but while mobile listening, again, because the bass is not as emphasized with the external background noise, and the mid-range is not as recessed as it seems while at home, the treble is actually a little bit louder while mobile listening. I found that with previous headphones as well, is that when you're listening on the go, there's a lot of background noise, so the bass gets kind of it kind of disappears when you're listening to your music like on the bus, and so that leaves the highs a bit louder than what it sounds like at home, and so that really makes this a balanced headphone in my opinion for mobile listening, and I am just really impressed at how well these sound for that purpose. Okay, so that is the Crossfade M100s while mobile listening. At home, the experience is a little bit different because there's very little to no background noise, and so you're able to more clearly hear what this headphone sounds like without the external noise. And so at home listening, the bass is a little bit too much for my preferences. It makes the lower mid-range more recessed than what it sounds like while mobile listening, but it's still a very good headphone for home listening, especially for movies with explosions. And actually just came back from playing a few games on Team Fortress 2, and the explosions were really nice when playing as a soldier. The Engineer's Sentry BB wasn't as annoying because of the slightly, I guess, rolled off treble. Not really rolled off, but quieter treble response. The imaging on this headphone is interesting, to say the least. The box on the Crossfade M100 says that there's a colossal soundstage. I found that the M100 has very, very, very good depth perception, and so like I was talking about with the bass and the lower mid-range, is that the bass is right up front in the stage, and then the lower mid-range is slightly behind it, and then the treble, so like the snare drums, is a little bit slightly behind the lower mid-range, and then like I said, with the treble extension, it's good, but it's kind of quiet, and so it seems like the cymbals are farther back on the stage than the snare drum. So it sounds like the snare drum is about like halfway through the stage, and then the cymbals and cymbal crashes are kind of behind that. So it's kind of a depth perception. In terms of left and right imaging, I found that it's pretty good for a closed headphone. It's not the best that I've heard in a closed back headphone, but it's still very acceptable. So I was watching a YouTube video, and they were doing a Dolby surround sound test, and they had the sentries placed in different positions, and then the Scout went in between all of them, and they can hear left, right, up, down, diagonal shots. And from the M100s, it sounds like when the left and right sentries are firing, they're kind of diagonal like that. So it was kind of like a more depth perception again, rather than pure left and right. But still a very good headphone for imaging, I think, as a whole. And this is of course all unamped. And so moving on to amped, again, I've tried the FiiO E7 USB DAC/amp, and then more recently I've been listening through my Objective DAC and Objective 2 amplifiers, headphone amplifier. And so with the E7, since it's more of a consumer grade portable headphone amplifier, the M100 sound better. The bass is more thumpy, so that bass pedal that I was talking about, you get more of the hard-hitting bass pedal effect, and so that's really cool. I usually don't turn the bass boost on this because it's not very clean in my opinion. So on bass boost setting 0, this is a really good bass pedal thump effect. And the way I like to think about it is that with most headphone amplifiers, it's not required for a portable headphone like the M100, so you won't get a drastic difference in sound quality, but it's noticeable. So I would recommend trying these out first, and then before you buy an external amplifier, just get a cheap one like the FiiO E7. I think it does improve the sound quality, but it's not drastic, and even with the more powerful Objective 2, the difference in sound quality between that and that is pretty minimal. It's not a huge difference, but it is very slightly noticeable. So if you're in the market for a headphone amplifier, I would recommend getting a fairly inexpensive one such as the FiiO E7, and then on HeadFi they've recommended the Digizoid Zo 2 amplifier, which is basically like a subwoofer. So it's a bit of a different amplification than this E7, because E7 is more of a neutral / flat amplifier, whereas the Zo 2 is like a huge increase in bass. And so if you want a funner headphone experience, I would definitely recommend a more colored amplifier such as the Zo 2. If you want a more true to the sound kind of headphone amplifier, I'd recommend something more neutral such as the E7. Or if you're hoping to upgrade from something like that, the Objective 2 would be a nice upgrade. That being said, back to the sound of the M100. When amplified, the soundstage does get bigger, and by bigger I mean both in terms of depth, so again the layering that I was talking about, as well as width. And so when you're listening to music, when amplified, you do notice that the sounds are more left and right rather than just pure depth like I was talking about earlier. And so that's a good, it's a good upgrade in my opinion. It does increase the instrument separation, and so instruments are more clearly defined within a song. And so there's that when amplified. Through a portable player, I mostly use my Sansa ClipZip. It's a really great portable media player without any amplification. The ClipZip and the M100, it sounds pretty good. I wouldn't say that amplification, again, drastically improves the sound quality, but it does make a slight difference. Unamped, the soundstage is a bit closed with the M100s, but it could also be due to the ClipZip itself, because the ClipZip itself is a fairly narrow soundstage, so I don't think these have very good synergy in terms of that, but overall sound quality is still really good. I mostly use this at school, again, while walking on campus, because it's a small footprint. It's very portable and potent, has this nice clip to clip onto my shirt. And so this is a really great pairing with the M100 for overall sound quality. I did actually bring my O2 to school for a couple days just to see the sound quality difference.
yeah, this is not very portable at all. It actually does fit in my jacket pocket, but I would not recommend bringing it as a portable headphone amplifier. But when I paired the O2 with my Clip-Zip, it did improve the separation. Again, as I mentioned before, the instrumentation separation as well as the left and right imaging. And again, that chest thumping bass pedal was just fantastic with the O2. It was noticeable, more noticeable when paired with the O2 than just with the Clip-Zip itself. So as a whole, I think when unamped, the M100s sound very good when mobile listening and pretty good for home listening. And then when amped, home listening, it does sound better. I would not say it's the best headphone for home listening. There are, of course, a whole spectrum of headphones that you can buy for home listening, such as open back versus closed back, more brighter sound rather than the more warm sound that these have because of the emphasized bass. But I'd say they are an enjoyable headphone for home listening. It's definitely more of a fun listening experience than a more traditional audiophile or high fidelity music experience. So these are very good. I would say they are amongst the best of portable mobile listening headphones. I've tried almost all of the headphones at the Apple Store. I actually went to the Apple Store a few times, bringing my own source with my own headphone amplifier with my own cables, and I was trying out all the different headphones, comparing them with the M100, and the M100 was pretty much almost always on the top. If you can't afford these $300 headphones, a very good alternative to this would actually be the new Logitech UE6000 headphone, which is $100 cheaper than this. But for the price, it sounds pretty similar. You don't get the same fun upper mid-range as the M100s, but it's still a really good headphone for the price. So I would recommend the UE6000 as an alternative to the M100 if you're looking for a headphone and you can't afford the $300 M100s. Alright, so that's the sound quality. Sorry that was a bit long, but you know, a lot of headphone reviews kind of skim through the sound quality last, and so I wanted to do that first, just so you guys can get that. Now, in terms of everything else, you guys probably already know this, but like the M100, just like all the other V-Moda headphones, have this like extreme headband. It's very flexible, and so if you have a large head, doing what I just did right now does make the clamping force less. If you want more clamping force, just twist the headband like this, and it's there you go, more clamping force. My ears are a bit angled, and so when I put the headphones on, they're kind of flat like that, and my head is kind of angled like that, so it's a bit difficult since these don't spin or swivel. That will be V-Moda's next project. Actually, they codenamed it the Revolver. It will have a swivel mechanism. But in terms of the M100, since this is what I'm reviewing, you can just easily flex the headband like that, and it will actually angle the drivers a bit. As you can tell, it's more of a V shape rather than flat shape. And so that conforms to my head a lot better. The folding mechanism. The folding mechanism is probably the best, and I really mean that. It is the best folding mechanism I have ever seen in a portable headphone. Again, I was at the Apple Store comparing different headphones. A lot of them fold. They have that kind of flimsy hinge that a lot of headphones have, such as the Beats by Dre Studio, for example. These are very robust. They have that nice satisfying clicking sound so that you know it's folded. and the mechanism for it is very clever. Not sure if the autofocus will work, but there's a small metal nub on one of these metal discs, and it goes into a kind of niche into another metal disc, and so when you fold it, unfold it, the metal nub goes into a different niche or nick, and it makes that click sound. So that's a very clever mechanism that I really like from V-Moda's M100 headphone. It is very fantastic, and I really don't see it breaking anytime soon. It is a bit loose, but I don't foresee it breaking or snapping, because these are all, I believe they're either aluminum or steel metal, so it's very well built. The hinge itself is bolted in place with these hex screws, which are the same screws on the shields, and so if those were to break, it'd be pretty hard because it would need to undergo a lot of shear force, which is horizontal force along these directions. Very good build quality, I think. One problem I do have with the headphone itself is that the ear pads, they're not small on my ears, but in terms of depth, they are problematic to some, myself included. When you put the M100s on your head, over time the memory foam will kind of get compressed, and especially if you're exercising, they get compressed pretty fast, and the tip of my ear actually touches the driver enclosure, which is kind of a dome shape in here, and so you actually get less depth than what you might think you get. And because of that, my ears do feel a bit pained and fatigued after about an hour and a half of normal use. It's even earlier during exercising, so that might be problematic to some. There are definitely a lot of people who don't have this problem, so you'll have to try it out yourself. And actually did get the white ear pad replacements. These are the LP/LP2 ear pads, and they are different from the M100. They are stiffer, and so I can actually take this off now that I've had practice with it. It's just a plastic tab thing. So this is what the driver looks like. I don't know if you can tell, but it is, again, dome shaped here, so it does give less depth than what you might think it does. And so with the LP2 ear pad, my ears don't have that problem, so if you had no ear pad problems with the LP2, you might with the M100. Again, I recommend trying them out. V-Moda has the 60-day guarantee policy, and so that's good. In terms of the headband size, I know a lot of people who have the M80 headphones, and they were really small. I will confirm that the Crossfade M100 headband is a lot bigger, and I only have mine on like click number 3, and there's, I believe, 9 clicks total. So it is a nice big headband. So that was an issue with the M80. You're not going to have that issue with the M100. And then cables. So the Speakeasy cable, which I believe is one of the older cables that V-Moda has, it works as a cable very well, but I have some issues because it is rather stiff, and so when I'm walking around school with this, these are kind of like sticking out all over the place, and it's not very pleasant. And then it's actually starting to fray a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see it against the black background, but it is starting to fray, and I kind of worry about that. People with the LP have been talking about that too, and so I don't think it'll be too much of a problem, but it's just something that I want to bring up. The more used cable that I have is the SharePlay cable. This is much more flexible and pliant. I've been using this for about 3 or 4 days now, and I have absolutely no issues with it. Cable fraying's not a problem. The SharePlay connection is really nice. I have shared it with a friend of mine, and so it works flawlessly. This is a longer cable than the Speakeasy cable. This is a 6-foot cable. Speakeasy is 3 foot, and then the Boom Pro is also a 6-foot cable, so it's the same length as the SharePlay. If you heard from the beginning of my video, the microphone is pretty good sound quality, I think. I don't really use a microphone, but it's a nice addition for those gamers out there. This is not a noise canceling microphone, so it does not cancel / block out external noises, so it might be a problem to some. Also, a lot of people on HeadFi have been complaining about this. This is not a VoIP connection at all, so it only has one plug. There is a VoIP adapter, so you have the plug here and it goes into the microphone and audio cables separately, and so that's a problem to some. I use a MacBook, and so it's not a problem for me since it accepts these kinds of single microphone audio channel cables. And the case is very nice. I mean, I keep this hung on my backpack. I have the carabiner here. The only problem I have with the white version, I'm not sure if it happens with the black, is that you can see some of the dirt and grime over time. I've been using this since I got it, actually. No, a week after I got it, because I let these burn in for 144 hours with pink noise. So I've been using this at school, and it does show some signs of wear and tear and dirt. The zipper is kind of stiff, if you can hear that. It's not too much of a problem, but it just takes some time to open and close for me. Very nice case overall. It does keep my M100 safe from any drops, or well, actually it doesn't need any protection from drops, because I mean they've been dropped 60 plus times or something. But yeah, that's the M100s. Very good headphone. It's one of the best headphones that I have experienced. It's definitely worth the price in my opinion. It works very well for a lot of different music genres. I listen to rock, folk, some pop, mostly Chinese pop. I already mentioned folk, rock, alternative rock, some orchestra. The soundstage is not good for orchestra, but it's okay. Yeah, soundtrack. Yeah, I listen to a lot of different genres, and I think these are a very good headphone for a lot of genres. For the price, I really think these are a steal. They are just a very fantastic headphone. Really, I've said all I can about these headphones. Go ahead and get these guys. These are really great headphones in my opinion. They do have those minor issues that I was talking about, including the depth perception, but as a whole, these are very fantastic headphones. I use these all the time during mobile listening. I get compliments from people. I get a lot of looks. It's just a great headphone. So that's the Crossfade M100 by V-Moda. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions or want some comparisons, please leave a comment below.